Um, hey, all, welcome to my channel. Um, if you've seen my channel, seen my videos, you know that I do a live. I made a resolution every year, once a week, at least once a week. I would do a live stream of whatever it may be on any topic or any subject at that moment in time that I felt like talking about. I mean, my channel's been like that anyways. It doesn't matter. So, quite honestly, so today, well, you know it's past the trading deadline. I haven't really said much about it with what the Mets are, what's going on with the Mets and such. Um, it's it's not something that was unexpected by this point. Trading off Scherzer, trading off Verlander, trading off Pham, Kane as well too, as well of course Robertson. Um, Honestly, it was one of those things where it it was to be expected. The question is, what were they going to get trade value wise? Now like Verlander had some aspects of like could get back some, but in reality, the other teams that were desperate for pitchers, quality pitchers, whether they be quality pitchers or not, that was a question in and of itself because um, they weren't in a. I mean, honestly, they didn't have to give up their prospects, top prospects in their farm system, to get these players. Quite honestly, um, the Dodgers probably had the most to give, but I guess the Mets weren't going to get much from them, basically. Hence the reason why the Mets traded Verlander back to Houston, Scherzer to the Rangers, Robertson, of course, to the Marlins, Pham to the Diamondbacks, etc. Basically. But it's more of a case where like we knew it was a sell off. The team was going to be selling. I kind of called it. If you've seen some of my videos in the past, you saw basically that the Mets were going to be trading off. They were going to be sellers. I mean, it was a given. They were going to be sellers unless they went off in some winning streak, which was not happening. Um, there was no purpose to keeping these players. Honestly, the real question comes down to is Pham was the one that was most likely to get something in return because he was the only one that was doing pretty good hitting wise. Um, Now, from that perspective, what the Mets got back, only time will tell, basically. But now, the one thing that's interesting though is with Scherzer. When after he left, he basically had said that after they traded Robertson, you could tell, and during those those interviews after the games, especially after he lost, that one game after Robertson had played and he pitched after the game, he wasn't too keen or thrilled on how the Mets pretty much sold off Robertson, and he said like, hey, look, I want to talk to upper management. And Epler essentially told them basically this is like, yeah, we're not even going to bother with 2023. 2024 is not going to happen. We're looking for 2025, most likely 2026. Now, in that line of thought, if that is actually true, that Cohen was thinking along those lines, as well as Epler and the rest of the Mets organization, then as a Mets fan, why would you want to go to the game? Why would you want to go to the 2025 games? Or 2024 games, I'm sorry, 2024 games. I mean, like, if you know they're not going to go in to compete for a wild card at least, why even go to those games now? I'm like, as a Mets fan, I'm like, I'm not paying for overpriced tickets for a mediocre team that's, looking to probably potentially tank, possibly, more than anything else, just so they get good draft picks or such. Um, but I think from again, this is from my perspective, my thinking is I think the fact is like Scherzer and Verlander, they were in their 30s, late 30s, early 40s. Kana, where he was at like 34, and Pham 35. These are players that were not going to fit with the Mets next year. I mean, we knew 2023 was a bust, so there was no way there was anything was going to happen. So, just might as well get rid of them. The thing is with Scherzer and Verlander, their line of thought was like they had their no trade clauses in place. So the question is like, if let's say the Mets were going to go for Otani for 2024 and other players, Scherzer is going to want to stick around. I'm like, hey, look, I have a shot with Otani, and with him, a larger shot to get to the World Series again. Similar with Verlander as well too. I think Epler, by saying that, gave them the opportunity where, not the opportunity, but gave that possibility for Scherzer to waive his no trade clause, and then the Mets could trade him off to whatever team. Basically, the real question is the prospects they got back. It's more of a case where like the Mets were pretty much buying prospects, buying these prospects. That's really what comes down to. They didn't really trade for these prospects; they bought them because the thing is, let's not forget, the Mets with these two trades, they were also paying maybe 40 to 60% of their salaries to the other teams. So it was like sort of off the books type of thing, to get it all tax write off or something of that nature. But in reality, what they were doing is they were really buying these prospects more than anything else. The real question is, are these prospects worth it that the Mets got in return? Only time will tell. I mean, you've got 2 to 3. They're not going to be impactful players next year. The question is, will they be impactful players in 2026? We'll see. 2025 would be great, but I doubt that's going to happen as well too. But I think honestly what it is if I'm hoping this is the case where, these two guys were old, pretty much old, over the hill. They're no longer their former selves, their former glory. They can help you in the postseason, but in reality, during the regular season, they're not much up. They became a liability more than they became more of a liability more than anything else during the regular season. Postseason, it might be a different story. That might have flipped to the point where like they would be tremendous assets in the postseason. Well, at least Verlander. Scherzer, we saw what happened last year as well too. So so the thing is like from that perspective, I would say that because the Mets didn't want to keep him and they didn't want the rotation to be with these two guys next year, to the point where like if they bring other pitchers, like you have an influx of bad pitchers or mediocre pitchers or middle of the line pitchers or back end tail pitchers, that there'll just be an influx of them. You don't know what to do. And like the thing is, you cannot not play Scherzer and Verlander because with the salary of the Commander, they had to pitch. I mean, if they weren't pitching, what do you do? So at that point, that's where it made sense for them to, I guess, sell off the team basically at that point. I'm hoping that's the case. And because from that perspective, the fact that Epler said like, yeah, we're not planning to make any big name signings for next year, I think that's a ploy again as well too, to get the opportunity for them to use and buy off or pay Ohtani, go for Ohtani basically for free agency for Ohtani. The question is, will Ohtani want to come to the Mets? It's a different story altogether. We don't know what Ohtani wants to do at that point, honestly. If this works out for the Mets, where like I was also thinking like the fact is like by getting all these prospects, loading up the farm system, some of these could be used as trade bait for other stars that they could get or the potential players that they could get as well too, beside the free agency, for trades as well too in the offseason. I mean, there's talk of like rumors of like the Mets potentially trading up Alonso since he's going to be a free agent in 2024. Do I see that happening? It's hard to say. If this is the case, what Apple is trying to do basically of like, yeah, you know what, we want people to build a farm system, rebuild the farm system, but come off at the point where like, they would be contenders in 2025, 2026, and they're signed for the long haul, then it's a possibility depending on what they can get back for Alonso. But quite honestly, I think more of a case is like Cohen's not going to let him go. I think he's going to sign him. He's not going to be a $500 million man, of course, by no means. And definitely he's not going to be $300 million worth. I mean, if what's his name? If Alonso can get $300 million from another team, I say go for it then after 2024. But in reality, I don't think that's happening. The Mets are not going to give him $300 million. I mean, close to that anyways. Or well over $300 million. Sorry, $350 million, something like that. Because I know these players want long-term deals. I mean, you have Lindor signed up for long-term as well, too, and you already have Nimmo. Honestly, I think they're going to probably make a play for Ohtani this season, at the end of the season. And then after that, it's a possibility. I think, with Juan Soto, I think he's going to become a free agent. Actually, when does Juan Soto become a free agent? Give me a second. I'm sorry. I'm looking it up right now. Yeah, again, for 2024 as well, too. So in reality, you could see that, by having the plan of putting in Otani in place for 2024, after 2024, bringing in Juan Soto, having Juan Soto in there as well too. I mean, I think that's what the Mets are looking for at this point, and like I think they're trying to build for not your players that are well past their prime, but just hitting their prime, peak in their prime, or just about to, or almost in the twilight of their prime. But I think that's the whole thing, basically. Honestly, I'm not sure if that's the case. It'd be surprising if they do actually decide to rebuild. If that's the case, then why keep Lindor? I mean, honestly, that makes no sense to keep Lindor. You might as well rebuild, like trade him off and get some more more assets at that point, or more prospects. I mean, because Lindor, long-term wise makes sense. Short-term wise makes absolute sense. But if you're not going to build for the 24 season, 2025 season, you're looking for the 2026. Lindor's going to be just about the time of passing his peak of his prime. He's going to be still in his prime, but just past the peak. And he might not be as good or as great as he was, 4 or 5 years ago. So that's something you got to look for as well, too, honestly. I can say this. As a Mets fan, it was too expected that this was going to happen. Like everyone had their high hopes up. I was not hopeful. I mean, if you've seen all my earlier videos, much earlier videos about the Mets with all these free agent signings, and especially when they were ready to, when they signed off for Verlander, I was not as optimistic. I was holding back a little bit because in reality, I was hoping for them to do, but in reality, I was really being more of a realist and knowing full well, like, these guys are a little older. I'm like, I don't know how well they do. At least they weren't going to go dead last. But at the same time, it was one of those, because I thought of Buck Showalter. Maybe Buck Showalter, having the respect that he has and, the knowledge he has, he would keep the Mets at least a little bit more competitive. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And we knew what had happened at that point. And with the fact is, like, when the Mets were trying to get Correa, I mean, all right, it makes sense, but at the same time, does it? And it was one of those things where I was a little fearful of that, and my concerns came to light in the beginning of the season, and towards towards the beginning of June. I was like, the Mets are not doing anything at this point. They're not they can't scrounge up a couple of win streaks, and because of that, we saw what was happening. I mean, hell, like the fact that they can't even beat the Royals, like the second worst team in the major leagues. They can't even beat them. They can't even beat them. They lost to them yesterday. I don't know where they're at right now. Actually, I think they're probably losing right now, if I look correctly. I can't see it, unfortunately, because stupid YouTube decided to take off SNNY off of their thing now, so can't really watch the Mets game now. Damn YouTube TV. Let's see where the Mets are at right now. I'm trying to look at the score. Apologies. 3-0 in the bottom of the fifth. It's 3-0 Royals on the bottom of the fifth. I mean, come on. If this is the case, the Mets might as well tank as much as they possibly. The problem is, even if they tank, I think they lose 4 or 5 draft places at that point, anyways, because of the fact that they're over the cap. So I hate to bring it up, but the whole Kermit the Frog meme. That's just me right now as a Mets fan. Yep. To be expected. So, I mean, what else are you gonna say? These are the Mets. If you're a Mets fan, you know. If you know, basically that type of thing. Basically, I mean, as a Mets fan, you never get your hopes up. I mean, you expect. I mean, the fact that they came off a 101 season last year, they were coming off a 101 winning season. Of course, the fact that the way they imploded also shows otherwise as well too. And they were never going to catch the Braves. Are there any highlights to take out of this season, basically? No. I would not say there are any highlights. I mean, outside of the fact that, the Mets prospects, Batty. Sorry, I'm looking at the scorecard actually here, seeing what the Mets are doing with the Royals. Nope. Nothing going on there, basically. Yep. They just basically did nothing there for that. You have Alvarez, Batty, of course, and with Vientos. I don't know how Vientos does, but we'll see how that works off. Um, and then like honestly, I don't know what they're gonna do with Vogelbach. They should probably trade off Vogelbach, to be quite honest. He makes no sense at this point. And David Peterson has been a big letdown. Quintana, I don't know what you do with Quintana at this point. It's like they got to rebuild a whole rotation. The only thing is you're gonna have to keep Senga because he's there for the long haul, and he can eat up the innings. At least he can definitely eat up some innings. He's been the most reliable out of all the Mets pitchers. He's been the most reliable at this point. The question is like when Edwin Diaz comes back, will he be the same? Honestly, from my perspective, I don't think that's going to be the case. Sadly, I don't know, but I could say this: the Mets are not going to be competitive next year. Epler is trying to say they're going to be competitive. The only way they're going to be competitive is if they go for Ohtani. If they're going for Ohtani, then and they're going for 2024 and 25 for sure. If they don't go for Ohtani, they don't make a play for Ohtani, don't make any trades for any players, do any big free agent signings, then that what Epler did say was true. The question is, like, I don't know why Epler would say that to Scherzer because he knew that would get out to the public. So I don't know. That's why I'm hoping that maybe he said that to Scherzer to get him to waive his no trade clause, and at the same time also give all the impression to all the other clubs that we're not even going to go for Ohtani, and then like out of the blue swoop it and get him basically. But honestly, the question is, can they get Ohtani? Because even if they offer him half a billion dollars, the dude says he wants to like play in the West Coast mostly because it's closer to Japan, of course, closer in time difference. But the other factor is as well too is Angels have most likely have a better roster than the Mets, of course. Similarly, the Dodgers as well as the San Diego. I mean, the Padres would make absolute sense, to be quite honest. If Ohtani were to go to the Padres, it makes absolute sense because of all the number of hitters that they have. They're just 2 or 3 players away, and I think they're World Series team at that point. Similarly, the Dodgers. Honestly, I would have loved to have seen Verlander go to the Dodgers. That would have been great. I would have loved to have seen that. Seeing Verlander and what's his name, Kershaw, play together basically. Because quite honestly, it would have been interesting to see how that would have worked out from that perspective. Because as a Dodger, the dude was lights out practically. Then of course, sorry, I'm looking again at the scoreboard. Sorry, sadly. Interesting. Okay, yeah, they're not getting anything from this. I don't even know why they bother. Sorry. Anyways, yeah. With that, I mean, honestly, it's. Sorry, I'm just like getting some messages as well too. Sorry, I do have to say though, I don't see any messages. I try to see the live chat on, but big fact I'm using OBS. There's something going on. I got to figure out what's going on with that exactly. Trying to figure it out a little bit. I apologize on that part, but But yeah, sorry. I was talking about Verlander for a second. Sorry about that. Yeah, it would have been great to see Verlander go to the Dodgers. Seeing Verlander and Kershaw pitching together, it would have been interesting to see how that dynamic would have worked out. Because like those were the 2 dominant pitchers, and have been the dominant pitchers. And on the opposing sides, like one in Detroit, one in LA. Now Kershaw definitely having 1 ring. Now Verlander having 2 rings, of course, with the Houston Astros. It would have been interesting to see if Verlander went to LA, how that would have worked out for him as well. Honestly, Kate Upton as well too, being Kate Upton. I think he would have loved the LA life as well too, to quite honestly. But anyways, it's that meme time basically, where I basically, this is the meme time. It doesn't really. I wish OBS actually showed me like chats, but also the number of people that are watching this, but it doesn't show that part either, which kind of sucks. I wonder if is there a stats thing here? Let me see. I'm curious. I should share this stuff with you guys, but I don't know how to share it either. View stats. Here we go. Not much there on the stats part. Just shows where it's live, frames and all that stuff, but it doesn't show actually anything else like number of viewers. I wonder why that is. Meh. Anyways, sorry about that. But yeah, that's pretty much what I could say about this. I mean, honestly, as a Mets fan, I'm sorry to say, this was definitely not the year, of course. The real question is, will next year be their year? It's hard to determine that part, honestly. We'll have to see what happens with management. Will Epler be around as well, too, honestly? Because this is practically, I mean, it's partly Epler's team, not only Brody Van Wagenen, but also Epler's team a little bit. The real other question is like, will this be Showalter's team next year as well, too? Because rumor does have it, of course, with the fact that Showalter has been on the hot seat and like he's had these stars, but the guy's well respected. I don't think he deserves to be kicked off, but it's I don't know what to say exactly. Sorry, I'm just looking at some stuff right now. Oh god, I completely forgot his name, actually, to be honest. Who was... I can't remember his name now. Why can't I remember his name? The dude that was with the Mets, he became a Mets manager, but then had to leave because of the scandal. Mets. I can't believe I have to do it. Carlos Beltran. There is rumors that Carlos Beltran he's part of the Mets management office now, but it seems like if Showalter were to be fired, do not be surprised at Beltran coming back in and basically being the manager. The real question is, can he be a manager? Only time will tell. Only time will tell, unfortunately. But I can say this. I don't think Buck Showalter deserves it just yet. I'll wait till 2025 and see what happens there, or up to 2024 season, see what happens there. But it depends how the Mets build out the 2024 team. If they do go for Ohtani, and I think they are going for Ohtani, and I think they're going to make some trades in the offseason with some of the prospects that they have for some players to compete now. Because I know, yeah, it's true, yes. Cohen has said like he wants to build the farm system back up to what it is again. Like the way the Dodgers, he wants to follow the Dodger model, basically. Like, get your players, but also build out that farm system. So you, as the teams lead, as your players go, you can replace them with your farm, prospects, potential superstars at that point as well too. Honestly, first and foremost, we know that the Mets need to build out the farm system in pitching. Hitters are dime a dozen nowadays. Pitching is not. Getting good quality pitchers, starting pitchers, as well as relievers for that matter, is not that easy nowadays. You need those quality pitchers. It's been proven. It's definitely been proven. Let's not forget, it's been proven. With pitching, it can lead you into the playoffs, get you into the playoffs. I mean, look what it did for the Mets in 2015, 2014, 2015, 2016, when Harvey, DeGrom, Syndergaard, in 2015, Syndergaard, Wheeler, and Matz, those five. I mean, those core five, had Harvey not injured himself and gone crazy on 2016, we might see a Mets dynasty from 2016 onwards, like to 2021, basically. I mean, DeGrom showed how good he was. Syndergaard went on the decline, but he might be back, depending. Look at what's going on with him in Cleveland. I think he just needed a change of scenery. Similar with Wheeler. Look how good Wheeler is, or decently good how Wheeler is. Matz, I honestly thought Matz was more of a reliever more than anything else. He was not your starter. He was a reliever. I think they could have kept him as that person. He probably could have been your closer, actually. Matz seemed more like a closer more than anything else. I think he could have been your dominant closer out there. Why am I saying this? Because look at it this way. The Mets, they had Isringhausen. Didn't do so well. But when he went to the Oakland A's and Cardinals, he became a dominant closer. And so not as dominant as, let's say, Mariano Rivera, but dominant enough. And that's why I think the Mets should have done that with Matz. Question is, can they do that with find any other players like that? I don't know. You know what? Maybe David Peterson could be your closer. It seems like he might be good as a starter, but in reality, he might be better as your closer or a reliever for that matter. He could be that 1, 2, 3 innings. He could be that setup man for all we know as well, too. Honestly, if he could go for two innings, perfect, and lead into Edwin Diaz. That's your 7th and 8th inning guy that brings in Edwin Diaz in the 9th inning, basically. Maybe sometimes in the 6th inning for that matters too. But like if some of these pitches can last to the 6th to 7th inning, you bring in David Peterson and then you bring in Diaz. Maybe that might happen. I don't know. Also at the same time, again, Ohtani, he can only do so much as a two-way player. He's definitely a once-in-a-lifetime generational talent. Can the Mets sign him? It's hard to say. Can the Mets also find it with another Japanese player that's talked about right now? I forgot his name, but it's a possibility. But here, let's put it this way. This is what I'm seeing right now. What's going to happen with the Mets? They're going to go for Ohtani. They're going to go for Ohtani. They're going to make a play for Ohtani. If they don't get Ohtani, I think that's when if they can't land Ohtani, I think at that point, then they kind of like dismantle the team a little bit. They probably do trade off Alonso. I'm not going to re-sign any other long-term players until 2025, 2026. I think they will keep Alonso, though, quite honestly. I shouldn't say they're going to get rid of Alonso, but I think in more of this case, basically, if they can't sign Ohtani by the end of the season, at the end of the season, in free agency, then yeah, you won't see a large amount of free agent signings at that point. They'll probably try to build off the team with role players to keep them competitive enough, but hope for the 2025-2026 season at that point. And it's not there's probably not a draft class, but there's a better free agency class coming in for the end of the 2025 season, if I remember correctly. But with that, I'll leave it at that. I hate to say this, I really did not want to see the Mets become sellers, but they were. After what happened last year, I mean, they were doing so well, but once they imploded, I'm like, okay, but at least they made the playoffs. But the fact that they couldn't beat the Padres, I'm like, I hate to say it, but yeah, let's see what happens with it. But I'll leave it at that. Let me know your thoughts. Leave it in the comment section once this video becomes static. You're welcome to leave it in the comment section. I do read my comments when I get notified, and I do respond to them when they warrant a response. Thank you for those who have already subscribed. If you do like my videos, like my content, like my channel, I ask you please subscribe. If you don't like it but still watch my videos, I also ask please subscribe. But with that, I'll leave it at that. And don't be surprised later on this year, even though I'm in California right now, me going to an Anaheim's game or a Dodgers game and possibly streaming that from there. I know I think the Mets aren't going to be playing the Dodgers in Dodger Stadium anymore, so let's see what happens. I'll probably stream a game or probably capture some videos from there at that point as well too. So look for that down the line. With that, I'll leave it at that. Unfiltered, unedited.